This is Eric Rutan of Cannibal Corpse. You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast with Andrew McKay Smith.
G'day everybody, hope you're well. This is my first episode that I'm posting to Rumble before we post it to YouTube, so I'm going to give it a week or two. And so if you find this from the 28th of August 2023 until about the 10th of September, well done. Thank you. Thank you for supporting the show. I really do appreciate it. Now, the interview subject, the person at the centre of this chat is Mikael Stanne from Dark Tranquillity, The Halo Effect, and also Grand Cadaver. Now, the catalyst for the chat with Mikael is due to The Halo Effect headlining Lagerfest, which is a festival, if you haven't guessed it. It's going to be touring Australia, select cities, throughout November, so I'll certainly be at that. Now in this chat here, of course, we talk a little bit about the festival, but it's just great to get the lowdown from a Gothenburg original. That is exactly what Mikael is. So we talk about the relationship in the early days with the members of In Flames, Hammerfall, how he got Dark Tranquillity. Well, we talk about Dark Tranquillity's recent, wouldn't call them travails, but they've had some band member changes, so we discuss that. And I pose a question: does Mikael feel as though the Gothenburg scene of the early 1990s, is it as important to the evolution of extreme metal as the Floridian scene? Because I certainly think it is, but I ask Mikael, so stick around and hear how he answers. Now, if you've tuned in via the podcast apps, you're going to hear a tune. And also, you people on Rumble, actually, the YouTube edition won't get this, but Rumble and the podcast apps, you will hear a Grand Cadaver song, A Crawling Feast of Decay, my favourite track of the year, released thus far, or one of them at the very least anyway. Grand Cadaver, killer band. Goes right back to the very roots of what the Gothenburg scene was all about. That's the philosophy behind the outfit. So yeah, listen to this track here, and once it's done, we'll dive into the chat. You people on YouTube, you know the drill. I can't play music, so you'll hear the chat right now. Either way, let's go.
But Hey, man.
Michael, how's things, mate?
Hey, how are you?
Great. Nice to you're early. It was a surprise. I saw the email. Wow, I'd better get on.
Yeah. Well, I've been doing a few today already, so yeah.
No, that's great. No, thank you for doing that. Yeah. On that note, how have the calls been going?
Oh, great. It's fun.
You enjoy doing this sort of thing?
I do. I mean, you get to talk about the things that you love. It's not bad. Sometimes when you're doing like 17 in a day or something like that, maybe it's not as fun. But that's rare, very rare.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, what do you've been doing this a long time, and I've been a fan of your work for a long time too, I've got to say. But you've seen the transition from print to internet to now it being more of a video-based sort of a thing by video casting and YouTube and the like. Do you think that the standard of heavy metal journalism, in inverted commas, do you think it's improved or it's about the same?
Ooh, I mean, it's definitely different, right? I mean, I kind of mourn the loss of some of my favorite magazines. Here in Sweden, we had two, Sweden Rock Magazine and Close Up Magazine. They were fucking fantastic, and they have shaped, what I listen to. My favorite bands, some of my favorite bands I discovered through reading metal magazines. And I grew up with Metal Forces from America, Terrorizer, that kind of stuff, and I found pen pals, through magazines, and tape trading friends. So it has a very special place in my heart, But of course, this is faster, easier, more easily digestible, and it's way faster. You can get things out in a day, and information that can travel anywhere. Anyone can access this. So of course, it's great, but of course, like with the attention span of people today, it's different too. I like the fact that the magazines that I write actually do long form interviews or articles, where you can really dig deep into like a career of a band or, or certain releases or an era or whatever, or producers, something like that. These things that take time and someone really puts, ton of effort into these articles. And I love that. And that's one of the things that I miss, like kind of this more long form stuff, because apparently people don't like to read as much as they used to, and so that's kind of sad. But at the same time, like there's a lot of cool blogs that I frequent and I follow, where I find a lot of new music, and of course, if there are interviews and things that I need to know about a new band that I don't know, I will look it up and I can find all that information easily and super fast. So of course I appreciate that, but there's something to the old ways of doing things that I think I prefer.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that point there. Oh, look, I have a wonderful opportunity here with the podcast, the videos, and the like, to connect with fans and fellow appreciators of extreme metal and the like. But I grew up in the same era you did, with Metal Maniacs. I interviewed Mike Greenblatt, who was the editor, and Terrorizer magazine as well, like you mentioned there. And we didn't have a lot of fanzines down here, when you Slayer mag, but it was really hard to get a hold of copies that were like less than 12 months old back in those days because of the tyranny of distance. But the probably the only significant downside, I'd say, in and amongst everything else, is this clickbait issue that we've got at the moment with Blabbermouth and all these other sites that it's not just Blabbermouth, right? They're probably the tamest version of it, really. There's these type in your name or Dark Tranquility or what have you into YouTube. Now, I haven't done it, but I'm willing to bet that someone's repurposed and appropriated all of this content, just put together some bullshit thing to try to make it really controversial and like for hits and clicks. We know that. And if I could do away with that, if I had a wand where I could do away with all of that and then encourage people into long form reading books again, biographies on these great musicians like you, mate, that's the wand I'd wave.
Yeah. But I mean, and I think, podcast has done a great job of kind of replacing the long form interviews. And I really love that. There are some amazing ones that I love, where it's, take your time. Like if it's 2 hours, no worries, like I love that stuff. And I've learned so much about artists and, and TV and movies and all that stuff that I listen to. But I think that is a great way of getting close to kind of an artist and really just listen to them talk for an hour or two. So there's a great one here in Sweden. Like they do. Sometimes they do a whole series just on different artists and bands, just totally deep dive into sometimes the entire discography, or sometimes, musicians talk about other bands and stuff. It's amazing. So that is a good way. And and for me, I'm always leaving or traveling or something like that, like listening to podcasts rather than carrying with me books or magazines. It's a pretty damn sweet alternative, I think, to that.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's these days it's YouTube, Spotify, and Kindle. And I mean, they're all on your phone, and I'm like everybody else. So I've got to be honest, a conversation for another time. But by the way, I'm a bit worried about the free speech component of everything. So I'm looking at some options with Odyssey, maybe, but there just isn't the audience there at the moment, as you know. So you can put it there, and it gets 20 views compared to the thousands that you might get on YouTube, and people are here. There's no doubt. But when I had a bloke online, actually, I should say, tell me in response to whether or not I should do that or not, telling me that he's using Google Drive, so YouTube, Google, same company, and telling me that he got a warning sent to him via email for a video that was in his Google Drive, so not publicly available, talking about, alternative theories about what happened with coronavirus. And I think we're in very, very dangerous territory when that sort of stuff happens.
that is scary.
Yeah, I spoke to John Joseph from Cro-Mags, and we spoke about the coronavirus and what was going on there. And I got the strike. You get 3 strikes, and I think you're off. And I got a strike because of that. And I've said it a few times on the podcast, mate. I'm a regular citizen, a taxpayer, a mortgage holder, and my kids are at school. And I think we've collectively got to say, no, that's enough. Okay. If the best solution to bad speech is airing it in the sunlight and letting people digest and say that's wrong, and if it's just a lot of these so-called conspiracy theories about coronavirus anyway have turned out to be the bloody truth, especially about Anthony Fauci, so it's just nuts that we're at a point where someone gets sent an email about something that's in their private drive, having contravening the terms and conditions of service of that product. And I've got to be honest, mate, I am worried about that. So you might be one of my first episodes that I put on Odyssey or Rumble as a first dig, and then maybe later put it on YouTube if you don't mind. Yeah. So there we go. But brings us up to the point that we actually we are having this conversation, which is due to Lagerfest. John texted me a couple of weeks ago about it, and he said, I think he said something like, "We'll catch up in Brisbane," because he's from down south, and he said, "We'll catch up in Brisbane because I'm really both looking forward to watching you guys." And I said, "What? What do you mean? The Halo Effect of touring?" He said, "Yes, they're playing on Lagerfest." So, is this your? I don't think this is your first time in Australia. So correct me if I'm wrong if it is or it isn't. But you guys must be looking forward to this, knowing you've got quite a fan base down here.
Yeah. It's the first time for this band, of course. With Dark Tranquillity, I've been toured 3 times, I think, in Australia, but it's been 7 or 8 years since the last time. So it's about time that I come back. And the other guys have been to Australia a few times with In Flames, of course, but this is the first time, doing this. So it's going to be awesome. Like I cannot wait. It's going to be a nice change from the coming winter here in up north. So I cannot wait to kind of, there's a lot of friends that I have been dying to see, and a lot of beers that I need to drink, that kind of stuff.
Indeed, yeah. Big question for you. A lot of Jesper fans out there. Will he be coming down as well?
I don't think so, no. For Jesper, it's like traveling is a big issue for him, and so he won't be. I don't think so. I would love to, and it would be awesome. And let's see. And I know he wants to, but he also knows that, if you have like addiction problems like he has, like being on a 25-hour flight and stuff like that, it's just not the best environment for him. But we'll see. But I really hope so. It would be fantastic.
Yeah, I only spoke to him a couple of weeks ago. Actually, it was great to see him again. And he's looking good, and he seems.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
he seems to understand what's going on, to your point. So it was going to be a minor miracle, I think, if he was going to come down here. But I thought, God, if it was one tour, because he's only been down here a couple of times, I think, in the very early 2000s or what have you. Yeah. You know, so is he still a part of your songwriting process, though?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's what I love. Like he brings so much to it, and it's amazing to see. Like going to the studio when we started kind of recording for the next album, Jesper's instinct is so kind of finely tuned and so kind of instinctual that, you know, we can sit and work on something that, I don't know, we've been working on it for hours and hours, and then Jesper goes in and goes, let me take a stab at this, and then solved, you know. And he just has this way of finding just the perfect kind of melody or the perfect rhythm or perfect riff to kind of like solve any issues we might have with a song. And it's amazing to see. And so he contributed a lot to the new songs that we've been writing.
Oh, and fantastic.
Yeah, that's great to see.
Yeah, great. Yeah. So Days of the Lost, it's it's a very solid album. And I feel as though it's interesting for you guys, because it was a temptation early on to label it as a supergroup, because it is in a way, but because of the album's strength, we don't have to use words like that, because it's the album and therefore the band. You stand on your own 2 feet. So do you feel as though this band has the legs in some ways to become the main thing? I could totally appreciate that there's Dark Tranquillity, a killer band, and, you know, one of the formative bands in the genre too, I must add too. Congratulations on that. But the halo effect, the future is very bright, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's, and that's the hardest part. Like I have to do both, like all the time. So it's full on, you know. Dark Tranquillity, of course, is always my priority, and it's always going to take precedent. Like it's going to, you know, I'll drop anything if Dark Tranquillity comes first, right? But we're going to manage to do this as well, and it's a bit of a challenge, but so far it's been okay. You know, some weekends are insane where I have to do 3 shows with 2 different bands, that kind of stuff. And also like coming home from a tour with one band and just, you know, home for a week and then go out on another tour with another band, that kind of stuff. So yeah, but it's all my fault, you know, and so far I think I can handle it. But it is cool. Like we didn't set out to do anything other than just write music together and have a great time. We've known each other since we were teenagers. So kind of doing this now with all the experience that we've have between us, makes this just like a joyous thing where we could, focus on making music that we love and having a ball doing it. And, and we decided early on that if it's not fun, if we don't feel it, if we don't kind of feel this kind of like creative thing and have fun while, touring, and then we won't do it, you know. But we're in a stage now where we're kind of dying to put out a new album and do this all over again, you know. And it's only been a year since the first album, but we're already ready, kind of like, oh, hey, let's move on, let's do more. And it means I'm constantly busy and I'm never have any time off, but it's worth it, I think.
You've got another good problem, which is that the Grand Cadaver. Okay, I got sent Deities of Death Like Sleep last week, and
nice.
I've got, without pissing in your pocket, I think it's the track of the year so far.
Nice.
I heard it and went, holy shit, I'm an old Sweet Death and Gothenburg sound fan. So for somebody like me, you know, that sound is right in the sweet spot that you've got there, bringing it right back to the very origins of, you know, you guys, you know, you're 19 years of age and you're 3 beers into your rehearsal sort of sound. You know, that's the way I felt about that. So, yeah, can you talk about what's going on there?
Yeah, and I mean, that's exactly what we set out to do. Like Alex, who writes most of the material or everything, basically, he's a neighbor of mine. He lives 3 houses away, and we started hanging out and going to the same shows a couple of years back, and we became friends. And during the pandemic, he asked me like, hey, you know, and he's constantly writing, he's doing all kinds of projects, and he was like, I have this idea about a, you know, old school death metal band, you know. And he grew up in Stockholm, and one of his teachers used to be like the old guitar player from Tiamat. So when he was like 14 or something like that, his teacher said like, oh, you guys are into metal, right? And he he gave Alex a couple of records, and it was Tiamat and Dismember or something like that. And off he went, and that became like his entire world. And then he moved to Gothenburg and started hanging out. And then he said, like, let's do it. And then we have Stefan, who used to be in Tiamat back in the day, and Daniel, who used to play with Catatonia. So it's just like, this made sense. And we said, like, let's have fun. Let's write something super fast. And that's what Alex does. He writes songs in a minute. It's insane. And then I'm given like a week to write all the lyrics, and then we record in 6 days or something like that. So coming from like the Halo Effect that takes 6 to 8 months to record an album, and DT who takes a year or more, to 6 days of just like recording it. And it means like it really is going back to the roots of what you truly loved about this genre. You know, like this is what I grew up with. I went to see Nihilist, you know, when they played here in, was it 88 or something like that. So this is so close to our hearts, and it's so much fun to just write basically insane lyrics about nothing, and have a blast, you know. And so we don't get to see each other that often because everybody lives in different places. It's only me and Alex and Christian who are here, but we're going to do some shows. We have some shows in November coming up, in October, and so the album comes out on Friday, in 2 days from now, and it's amazing. Like, it's so much passion that goes into this project that it's insane. So, but it doesn't take up that much time, but it takes a lot of, I don't know, like a lot of planning and a lot of kind of energy, but in a good way, you know.
Yeah, I can hear it. Don't worry, it comes right across. Yeah. And look, here's a point I wanted to raise. So I love talking to you guys who were in the scene back in the day, and you've been doing it for decades, you know. And I've long felt that the Swedish scene, so the Gothenburg scene of the early 90s in particular, it's as important to the evolution of extreme metal as the Floridian scene was. Okay, is that a comment you agree with?
I don't know. It's hard for me to say, I think, but because I know how important the Florida scene was to me, you know, growing up with Nocturnus and Executioner and Atheist Deicide, that kind of stuff. I mean, that was everything to me. So, but it's, you know, of course, we see it and we hear it from a lot of people that, you know, who they kind of maybe grew up a little bit later than I, and started listening to music from Gothenburg or from, you know, Sweden in general. And that became everything. So I get it, you know. I don't know in terms of how important certain things are, but I'm really, really proud of what we have accomplished here in Sweden and in Gothenburg in particular, where I think there's so many great bands and so many original bands. And certainly if there is a sound, it's the sound of good quality and good musicianship and integrity and passion. And I always felt that, like, we have some of the best bands in many, many different genres. And to me, that's fantastic. Like, we have fantastic, you know, prog rock. We have amazing doom metal bands. We have a lot of psychedelic, cool bands, and insane black metal and fantastic death metal, of course. And so it's all there. And the variety is insane. And which means I get to go to shows every week, you know, seeing new bands. And I love that. So it's really cool. And of course it's amazing that we kind of left a mark somehow.
Is Gothenburg, I'm none the wiser, by the way, and it's the first time I've asked this question, interestingly enough, but is Gothenburg similar to Melbourne, that it's a bit of an arty sort of a town, is it? City?
Ooh, I don't know enough about Melbourne to make that comparison, I think, but it is. I mean, it's the second biggest city. It's not as, you know, intense as, you know, like a capital is, like Stockholm is, and it's very much encouraged to be a musician or an artist. There are a lot of venues. You can get, you know, a lot of help when you're an upstarting band. You can, you know, opportunities to find a rehearsal room, rent equipment, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I would say so. Like when in the early 90s, there was like this music contest in town that went every weekend, where all bands kind of played and, did 3 songs each. And it was the biggest thing. Everybody went. There were thousands of people every night. And all the kind of young bands could actually perform on a proper stage in front of a proper crowd. And that really sparked the imagination, like when we were kids, like, oh, holy shit, we want to be part of that. And then we were eventually, and that kind of inspired us to go bigger and to kind of continue. So stuff like that has always been going on. So I think, there's everybody's a musician here. It's insane. Everybody I know.
Yeah, Sydney and Stockholm. I haven't been to Stockholm, by the way, but I imagine that the vibe would be similar. Just chaotic, global cities with tons of different people from all walks of life from all across the globe.
Exactly.
Melbourne's a bit like that too, but it still feels like, and they don't like me saying this, but it still feels like it's got that country town, Australian city vibe about it, whereas Sydney's lost it decades ago.
Yeah. But it's the same. And I think that goes for a lot of, capital cities contra, the second biggest city, something like that. This is, people are from Gothenburg here, whereas in Stockholm, everybody's from somewhere else.
Precisely. That's exactly how it is in Sydney. Don't worry. Yep. Gotcha. I'm going to cast your mind, or keep this track going, if that's okay. Now, look, I've read some interviews with you, but I haven't heard you being asked this question recently. Okay, so I'm going to cast your mind back. What is it, 30 years ago now? But how come you left In Flames after the Lunar Strain?
I didn't leave because I never really joined. It's 90, right after we recorded Skydancer, first Dark Tranquillity album. Anders, who sings with In Flames now, he left Dark Tranquillity, so I started singing and I stopped playing guitar, and we got Fredrik Johansson to play guitar. And during this time, I started talking to Jesper, and he was in another band called Ceremonial Oath, and he wasn't really happy. He wanted to do something else. So he said, like, I'm going to start another band with some friends. And if you like to sing on the demo, it would be great. I just want to have a demo so that we can send it out and maybe get a deal, So we did, and recorded like a 3-song demo. And it was fun. And for me, it was just more practice and more experience, like we were rehearsing like crazy with Dark Tranquillity, writing in the gallery at the time. And Jesper was like, hey, come over, and then we'll rehearse and spend time in the rehearsal studio, and then actually record a demo in Studio Fredman. And that was the first time I was there. And then that demo immediately got picked up. So this label from down south, Malmö, they wanted to do an album. And Jesper asked me to be part of that. And I said, like, I don't know, like, I don't want my first album as a singer to be anything other than Dark Tranquillity, because that feels weird. But he bought me some beers, and I was convinced. And then I said, okay, fuck it, let's do it. And then we recorded Lunar Strain, and that was it, really. Like, and then we immediately after that we started recording the gallery, and so and we did. Was it 2 shows, one in Berlin and one in Stockholm, and that was it, like with that lineup. And then Jesper moved on, and he got 2 other singers to sing on those EPs that he did later on, and then Anders joined like 2 years or 3 years later. So I was never really part of that, so I never left. Really,
that clears that up. Yeah.
But it's a common misconception. Like, it's always like, oh, did you and Anders kind of meet on a bridge, in the headlights, and then you kind of the band switch singers, like in a movie? But no, that didn't happen.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So yeah, what about with Hammerfall? What happened there?
Well, funny you should mention it, because that rock contest that I spoke of, that was part of the reason why Hammerfall formed. So Oscar wanted to form a heavy metal band so that we can play at this contest, because it's fun. It was a cool thing. As I said, like you get to be in front of a big crowd and play like a professional PA and all that stuff. And so we started, and we entered that contest, and we did 3 songs. You do 2 songs and 1 cover. That was kind of like the rules of the contest. And then that was it, and it was fun. And then the year after we did the same thing, but then they liked us enough so that we got to the semifinals of this contest. And this was 96. And when the time of the semifinals came, I was on tour, like our second tour with Dark Tranquillity. And so they needed another singer. And Oscar said, like, oh, I'm going to talk to Joachim. Like, he can probably do it. He just came back from America to, like, music high school that he went to. And for me, it was just a fun thing. I'm not a, traditional heavy metal guy at all. That's not really my thing. So we just had a blast doing it together. I love Oscar and I love the band, and I'm so happy and proud of what they have accomplished. But for me, they was kind of like, yeah, cool. Go ahead without me. I'm fine, and Joachim is such a great singer and I could never do the stuff that he does. So it was just a brief little fun thing to do.
It's interesting though, talking to you, I'm just reminded that a lot of the bands did swap members there for a period of time. It was absolutely a scene, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was a scene. It was a scene where people, you're rehearsing in adjacent rehearsal studios to each other and sharing beers and stuff.
Of course. Yeah. It's a tiny, it's not a big city. And especially in the early 90s, nobody kind of knew about, extreme metal. So it was only us. Like, there was this bus line, that took us from where I grew up into town, and it's like a 40-minute bus ride. And along this bus ride, like, I got on first, and then Thomas Lindberg from At the Gates came on. Then Niklas and Anders Fridén came on the next stop. And then we had the Bjöller twins came on the next. And then Anders Ivers from Tiamat and Ceremonial Oath and Dark Tranquillity and Peter Ivers as well. Like, those were all on the same bus line. And that's how we met and how we started to hang out. And then there was this one small venue in town where we all went to see kind of extreme music, whether it was punk or synth or hardcore, but mostly metal. And that was the dream, to kind of play there eventually. And we did in 91 or something like that, or 90 the first time. And so that's where the scene grew. And there was one record store called Dolores Records where they had metal, where you can actually get, fucking Carcass or Morbid Angel and stuff like that. And that's where everybody went. So that's how the scene got started. And of course, that meant also, like, everybody started bands, but not everybody was compatible with everybody. So there was a lot of swapping in between members. Maybe not so much for Dark Tranquillity until later, but yeah, that definitely happened. I mean, there was not enough musicians.
Did you feel an overwhelming sense of camaraderie, or was it a bit like a platoon where you could still have some bitching involved?
No, it was all good friends first and foremost. I mean, that's how it started. Like, just hanging out at each other's houses, listening to music, swapping records and fanzines and, trading tapes and that kind of stuff. So that's how it started first. And then we started playing music. And then, of course, it was all about kind of sharing experiences and helping each other out, and sharing rehearsal rooms and equipment, that kind of stuff. So there was never any there was no competition between bands at all. Like, and it still isn't, regardless of genre or, but now there are millions of bands, of course, from the city, but it's always been like a really cool atmosphere. We still hang out with all the musicians here in town on weekends and shows and stuff. So it's still really cool vibe, and I love it.
Yeah, great. I'm just talking to you, I'm just musing on this. It might be a Swedish characteristic there, being very egalitarian, okay, rather than the tall poppy syndrome will bring each other down to a similar level. There's that element of encouragement, and it just happened at the right time, just as the match was struck, and, there's a lot of oxygen in the room, and it allowed the genre, Swedeath, and the Gothenburg scene to just explode. And was it a surprise? Yeah. Was it a surprise to you guys, though, that you were getting letters from people in Australia and that sort of thing?
Yeah, really. I mean, of course, we were the ones writing letters first, as fans. I was tape trading and writing letters to all kinds of bands and ordering demos and stuff in the late 80s. And so then when we we dreamed of having something out, like having a demo or and I think our first 7-inch was the one that kind of like got some attention out there, and it was fantastic to get orders for our 7-inch from South America or from Australia, for from America, and from south of France or stuff like that. It was insane, and it was so cool. And it was, of course, we couldn't have dreamed of it, but it was still a feeling like, okay, we there are others like us out there, that kind of thing. And that was really, really cool. But it was only around like 95, 96, I think, when we realized that people were really kind of into this sound that we had. And, Just the Race came out and Slaughter of the Soul came out in the same year in 95, together with The Gallery. So that became when it was first coined, like when people started talking about it. And I still remember we were on tour in Germany, our second ever tour, I think it was. And I was sitting in the bathroom, and on the floor was like this flyer for some new German band, and it said like playing traditional or true Gothenburg death metal. It's like, what the fuck is that? Like, I had no idea. Like, I never heard it before. No one had mentioned it, and I was like, what? There's bands like claiming to play like Gothenburg death metal band from Germany. So and then I realized that this is something. It was cool. But
I think it started over here with Entombed. I think it's probably fair, and then sort of it came along behind them, and it was just. I distinctly remember Wolverine Blues back in the day, and thinking it was a British band. That's right, and then it was Swedish, and thinking there's something going on over there, because that sounded like nothing else at the time, did it?
Yeah. No. I mean, I was blown away, and I remember. Yeah, Nihilist, of course, and then when the first Entombed demo came, like, fuck, it was insane. Like, I was fortunate that like Thomas Lindberg is 2 years older than I, so we had some friends from Stockholm that came down. So I got to meet all these guys, like the Tiamat guys and stuff like that, when I was just 15 or something like that, and it was really influential, just like hanging out with people who were just a little bit older, but had some experience and actually had recorded demos, and done stuff. And of course, like Thomas had Grotesque before At the Gates was formed. And I was a huge fan of that. And I always went to the rehearsal room and hung out. So that became kind of like a thing for me, like, hey, this is possible. This can actually be done, and that had a huge effect on me. And then seeing how, Entombed kind of took the roof off of every venue they played, and like it became a phenomenon in itself, and it was amazing to see.
Yeah, gotcha. Have I got time for a couple more questions, or have you got a head?
Let's see.
Another one on now?
No, actually, it's fine.
Cool. I'll just ask a couple more then. Yeah.
Sure.
Again, I get someone like you, mate, and I just go, these are the questions that I've had in the back of my mind for decades. Right?
I'm glad to answer, man.
Yeah, look, I never felt that there was a rivalry or any competition between you guys and Emperor and the black metal elite, if you want to call them that. But did you ever feel that way?
No. I mean, sure, there were people who called us life metal, and we're not into, if you're going to play death metal, it should be evil and should be this and that. But we try to kind of go against all that. And as much as I love some of the music, that kind of the philosophy and that kind of extremism never appealed to me at all. Yeah. But it was, and it was like only when I kind of got to meet some of these guys that were talking so tough and in the fanzines that I read, and I got to meet them. It's like, oh yeah, we're all fucking metalheads, and it was cool. So, but yeah, I mean, maybe there was a short time where we were not very popular with some of the black metal bands, but that never really bothered me, and nothing really came of it. So, but it was a thing. I mean, sure, like in the 90s where it kind of blew up, and churches caught fire and that kind of stuff in Norway, and it was insane. And of course, like the kind of more mainstream media kind of bundled all the extreme metal together and thought that we were part of that too. And that was kind of strange, but obviously, I mean, it was new to everybody. I'm glad we never it was never a thing, that we got caught up in. I think we managed to kind of exist very far away from all that.
Yeah, yeah. Even back then, I felt far-flung Australia with listing, and I remember there was a metal store down in Sydney called the Hammer House. Warhead Records and stuff was there, and
Yeah.
the lady down there was telling me about what was going on over there, and it just sounded like these guys were lonely and being like they were bullied or something, and so they resorted to these really, really, in hindsight, despicable acts. Let's face it, and the way that elements of the media even glorified it, and I've watched the Lords of Chaos film, which I think a lot of people don't like it, but I think that's a very good summary in my understanding of what happens without going into the intimate details. Okay, and summarize, and they're just, to me, they're just like a little elite club who these young men who just weren't bothered trying to fit in with the rest of society, and the music was sort of almost became secondary to that, and I think that's obvious because they got involved in all these antisocial activities.
Yeah. I mean, it was an interesting time, but it went too far for sure. Like, and some of my friends got so caught up in it, and that was sad to see, because of course there's an attraction in that, for a lot of people, but it was never that interesting to me. Like, no, for the musical side of things,
you still can't get an interview with Samoth these days. I've tried, believe me. I know people close to him, and he won't do it. And my take on it is that he's just sick of being asked about all that bullshit back then.
I think so, and
it's sad because he's got such a great contribution to it. But he's off the radar these days, except for when you watch him live. Great guitarist, great musician. It'd be lovely to have this type of a conversation with him, but it just can't happen. Maybe in the future, but who knows?
Yeah, let's hope so. But I get that. Like if you know that like the same old question's going to come up every single time you talk to someone, then let it go. It's easy to not do it. But
I don't blame him. I just think he's got such a great story to tell. Yeah. With Dark Tranquility as well, you've had quite a lot of changes lately, haven't you? Just in the last couple of years, were they COVID inspired or?
I wouldn't say inspired, but parts of it happened during COVID, and like Andy Sievers, who've been with us for many years, and it's one of my oldest friends. Like during COVID, he realized that maybe I don't want to tour that much, and he realized that the day job that he has, he's a teacher in an amazing school outside of town, and he realized that this is really what I do. I don't want to leave these kids, I don't want to be away. And when we started planning all this touring that we were doing last year, he realized that I can't, and I totally respect that. I miss him like crazy, and I see him all the time. But it's it was sad, but I get it. You should do what you truly love, and for him it was like being with his family, and also like all the students, and then kind of the other Anders drummer left, and that was kind of tumultuous in a way. But during COVID, like we were like, okay, like maybe I think it kind of solidified exactly what you want to do. Like it's easy to find something else when everything kind of went on a standstill, and for me, it became even clearer that this is what I really, really want to do. So I started 2 other bands, just so that I could keep myself busy. Whereas a lot of other people, and a lot of musicians kind of realized, maybe I'll find another source of income and something else to do. So that was part of it. And, but it was great kind of finding new people. So Christian, who also plays in Grand Cadaver, like he's an old friend of mine. Some of our first shows that we ever had in Gothenburg, we did with this other band, Pagandom, and he was like, they were like our heroes when we were kids. Like when we grew up playing guitar, we went to Pagandom to see them, and Christian was the vocalist and bass player, and they were like the best band in Gothenburg for many years. And so having him in the band is just fucking fantastic. And then Joachim is a friend of Johan's from Malmö, and they went to a music high school in Malmö together and studied. And Johan immediately recognized, like, this guy knows his stuff. Like he can play anything, he can do anything. And that was fantastic. So Joachim fucking rules. And he came to our first rehearsal. We had 17 songs and stuff like that for an upcoming festival. And we just said like, oh, okay, is anything particular like you need to ask, or it's like, how do you feel? It's like, no, I know the songs. Let's go. And he played everything perfectly. So yeah, and he hasn't missed a beat since, and it's crazy. And then, just recently, Chris Amott left, but he's been kind of, and he's been kind of, he wants to do something else. And I think like he wants to kind of do his own thing, whereas Dark Tranquillity is very much a band where we all work together, but it's especially Martin Brännström and now Johan and I. So it's kind of hard for anyone to kind of come into that group where we have been writing like this for such a long time. And I think he just wants to do his own thing, like the way that he wants to. And so it just came to a point where he said like, yeah, I need to focus on other things. And so it's really sad because he's such an amazing guitar player and an awesome guy. But I want him to be happy. I want him to write the best possible music. It's just not Dark Tranquillity stuff, something else. So, and that's what he's doing right now. So I'm dying to hear what he is working on. But so for now, we're looking for a replacement guitar for Chris Amott. But in the meantime, we have Chris' old guitar student, Joey Concepcion, and he's incredible. Like he's just insane. Like this, it's one of the best guitarist players I've seen. So we're good. It's fun to play together where everybody's like on top of their game, and it's even me and Martin, who the old guys, we have to really fucking improve and become as good as these new guys, and it puts the show on a different level, I think, for us. And I couldn't be happier. And we can play some songs that we haven't played ever before because they were too difficult or something like that. And now we can play absolutely everything, and that's fun to go back to, the 90s and pick up some songs that just haven't been played live.
Unreal.
So it's awesome. It's good times. I'm really happy, but yeah, it's been tumultuous and a bit difficult, but yeah, definitely a challenge.
Hey, mate, this is my final question for you. And look, you're a sharp guy. You tour a lot. You're in 3 bands, as we've mentioned, and you've. But I don't remember there ever being any commentary in social media or blabbermouth or even in magazines beforehand about you getting into a spot of bother or what have you. How have you avoided the pitfalls of alcohol through that period?
Well, I drink a lot. I love drinking. I really do.
You know what I mean, though. Like, I can tell it hasn't affected you.
No, but I don't. I don't really have that addictive thing. That makes me don't want to stop. Or I can always stop drinking, and it's fine. So when we go out on tour, it's party every night, always. When I get home, it's family time, and you're just So I'm always fine with that. But of course, it takes a toll, and it's not healthy at all. But I'll try. I'll try to stay as healthy as I can without stopping the drinking.
I think that's the only thing I noticed that'll put the brakes on a lot of bands is that we're all getting older, right? I mean, you're not much older than me. I'm 45, right? But I just noticed remember in 2015 it was, I think, the eve of that, when David Bowie and Lemmy died within about a week or 2 weeks of each other. Yeah. And it sort of brought in a sharp focus that if you really continue to abuse your body sort of in your mid-40s and thereafter, I don't know whether David I know Lemmy drank every day, but I don't know whether David did that, but he certainly did his fair share, let's face it. But it just seems like, at a certain point, moderation is the norm as opposed to indulgence, and that'll allow you to keep on doing it, because we're just getting to this moment. The guys in Cannibal Corpse are approaching, they're past 50 now, I think. Trey from Morbid Angel, I think, is pushing 60, if I'm not mistaken. And we want to see the bands continue going on, but it just might be a physical thing where it's just not going to happen. And you just strike me as a very sharp guy who seems to have been able to find the balance in and amongst it all.
Yeah, I don't know if, but yeah, usually, I mean, it always kind of, maybe you go too far sometimes during a tour, but it's all like you always have a show every day, so you have to keep sharp for that. So it's okay. I like to think that I've somewhat balanced and don't go too far, but But it's
Have you ever had
you
that?
think about it like when you start a tour, it's like 7 weeks. Holy fuck, this is going to be rough. But
yeah, I don't know. I was talking to the Paradise Lost guys about that, and I said, "You guys don't strike me as guys who drink a lot." They went, "Hang on, hold up a bit there. We're like carrying the flag for drinking bands," and it just, I guess it comes down to this: some people can, some people can't. Simple.
Yeah, I think it's that. I mean. And and it's important. Like when you come into Dark Tranquillity, like you have to be a good beer drinker. That helps.
Well, I couldn't imagine being too sloshed having to play those bloody technical guitar lines and those rhythms and stuff you guys have got. I mean,
it begins after the show.
Indeed, yeah, great.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a pleasure finally catching up with you, mate. Good luck. Good luck in Australia, mate. You know there's going to be a ton of people out there watching you guys headline the Lagerfest, and I'll certainly be there.
Yeah. That's going to be super fun. I can't wait. I'm just going to travel all the way to the other side of the world and go to South America and Mexico and America and before, but yeah.
Oh, well, save some beer drinking for here then, mate.
Good. I look forward to it.
Absolutely, mate. No worries. Well, thanks very much for the chat. Really appreciate it.
Take it easy, man.
Thanks, brother. Catch you. Well, there you have it. A conversation with Mikael Stanne from the outfits Dark Tranquillity, The Halo Effect, and also Grand Cadaver. Very, very interesting stuff indeed. I love talking to these guys that have been there since the very beginning. So much wisdom and knowledge to share. Okay, if you like that chat, thank you to all you Rumble people for tuning in. I do really appreciate that because the future of the show, I think, is off platform. I'm going to be migrating the show over time away from YouTube and onto the less visited sites, but I have very good reasons for doing that. You've heard me talk in other episodes about the issues that certainly the show, I don't really have it too much here. Censorship and cancel culture, but it looms, there's no doubt, and I want to be able to have different conversations without the threat of an episode being pulled, such as the one with John Joseph, ex-Cro-Mags. Talked about the origins of coronavirus and all the bullshit with Anthony Fauci and the gain-of-function research and the big cover-up there by mainstream media and big tech. It's ridiculous. Facts are facts. But apparently, if you talk facts on YouTube, well, you get removed. Thank God for Spotify on that front, but nothing like video is there. And I know Spotify has video, but it's not a community thing, is it, like YouTube is, or hopefully Rumble will become. Okay, so there are many more chats over at scarsandguitars.com if you're interested. And whilst you're there, check out my book. Click the link in the banner and you'll be taken to a marketplace of your choice. Do the rest, download a sample, etc. More information to share with you about the book in the moment, but before we get to that, I'll bid you a fond farewell. My name is Andrew Mackay-Smith and I'm the host of the Scars and Guitars podcast. Until next time, it's a goodbye for now.
This is Eric Rattan of Cannibal Corpse. You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast with Andrew Mackay-Smith.
I've been the host of the Scars and Guitars podcast since 2017. The first musician I interviewed for the show was David Vincent from Morbid Angel, and things have just snowballed from there. In all, I've posted almost 650 podcast episodes featuring conversations with many of the leading lights of rock, heavy metal, and beyond. It just got to a point where I thought, I need to write a book about all this, so that's exactly what I did. In Scars and Guitars Volume 1, you'll read a heap of deep reveals and commentary, such as Des Fafara talking about Cold Chamber and why the band will never return.
You know, if you're a band just starting out, you need to hear me. Do not start a band with partners. Ever.
Yeah, wise words, sage advice, mate, for anybody.
Don't ever, because I can't go do Cold Chamber right now unless I get others involved.
Phil Anselmo talks about the episode in his career which gives him the greatest sense of accomplishment.
I think the staying power of the fans and the staying power of the songs, you know, whether it's Pantera, Down, or Superjoint, the fans remember the songs.
Alex Skolnick from Testament confirms that, yes, playing the guitar in Ozzy's band is anything but an ordinary gig. Will Silent Oz from Dimmu Borgir write a book? Pa from Sabaton gives advice to people who want to start a band.
Look at the team around you, look at the bandmates. If the guys want to be on the stage, then it's all cool. If the guys want to be backstage, then it's not gonna be cool.
Current and former members of Cradle of Filth discuss the band's seminal 90s material. Read about the reaction to George Lynch and Mark from Suicide Silence's comments when they throw shade at then President Donald Trump.
We have this idiotic monster, this egotistical, self-aggrandizing, complete piece of shit in there. I just can't understand how we've gotten to this place.
And yeah, we kicked a hornet's nest with Sepultura. Percussive overlord Gene Hoglan talks about recording with Chuck Schuldiner.
Chuck was always, he was very, very open-minded, and he was into having his musicians that were playing with him just reach out for the best stuff that they had.
Phil Campbell from Motorhead discusses what it takes to get sober. John Five answers his critics who dismiss his tenure with Marilyn Manson.
My name is John Five, and Manson gave me that name, and I had some of the best years of my life in that band and learned a lot.
And we get the lowdown on Treyarch Zagtoth from those who would know, including his mother. All across Scars and Guitars Volume 1, there are moments of tension, relief, tragedy, exhilaration, and throughout it all, you'll obtain insight that I believe no one else has managed to obtain from many of your favourite artists. So treat yourself. Scars and Guitars Volume 1 is currently available as an ebook with a print edition on the horizon. Follow the links attached and download a sample. I'm sure you'll be compelled to read the whole book.